So, see what their gut reaction is. We need to bear in mind that these guys have not been trained and versed in the ways of the college yet, so we'll just see what an instinctive reaction they have rather than the fully informed one, which they would gain upon being elected. So, I will start with Laura this time. So, a committee member is not pulling their weight and is making life very difficult for the rest of the committee. What do you do?
I think communication is probably one of the most important things in the JCR prize role. So 100% you can't let that kind of thing slide, and hopefully wouldn't even let it get to the point where it was an issue, because I think like if it was an issue, I'd definitely have a chat with them in a more formal setting, in the sense of not wait till you bump into them, but actually be like, hey, please can we have a chat at some point, just with regards to your role, just so that they know that the chat is going to be role focused as opposed to friendship focused. And then from there, you basically check, you need to work out what the reasoning is, because obviously there's one thing being lazy, but like if you've gone for a committee role, you would not be the lazy type. It's more potential, there's the potential there's a problem as opposed to that they can't bothered. So just check, is work too much? Do they want help? Is there, like, there's obviously a whole variety of options that can be taken. But yeah, you've got to chat to them, I think, and then you can go from there.
Okay, Alex, your scenario is James Bennett emails you and says, "You free?" You say, "Yeah, why?" He says, "Come to mine." Now, you turn up. Turns out he's ambushed a meeting on you. He has amassed other members of college staff who want you to fix a certain situation in a way of their choosing. You have had no warning that this is a meeting, just this cheeky email. What do you do?
Well, obviously this is quite difficult because you're going to something quite unprepared. Well, if they want me to fix something that's been discussed by the JCR or as an issue of relevance to the students, then I wouldn't be too hasty to say, just to dissolve the meeting and say, oh, okay, no, I'll do that and then leave. Because obviously if it is something that affects students, then I wouldn't make any promises in that aspect. So I suppose, yeah, I think I would say that I'm unprepared for the matter and that I have been sprung in this meeting, which I'm sure they would know, and then discuss the issue with the committee and then the JCI as a whole, if that's appropriate, and see if we are okay with the solution they've brought forward for this problem.
Okay. Greg, your scenario. The dean, who is a top guy, is concerned about a sports team's social event which will be taking place off-site. He asks you to see if you can cancel it. What do you do?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that I speak to the club captain. I'd like to think that because of the relationships that I've built up throughout the past year with people, and especially having played sport for a variety of teams and now captain the thirds and going to watch all the teams, that I do have that I already have a good relationship with many of the sports captains. So in the first instance, that's what I do. We could then discuss what the issues are, and I also think it's important to get to the bottom of the reason why the dean has concerns. It could be something like alcohol, which can be fixed. It could be something more serious, like illegal drugs, for example. I suppose not illegal drugs, but you know what I mean. So I think it's important to get to the bottom of reasons why, and then we can talk between the dean and the club captains and sort something out. I think cancelling an event for a club social really is a last resort, because I know many people look forward to the club socials so much. For a lot of people, it's one of the only times they get to properly relax, get away from work. So I think cancelling is the last resort, and we should do everything we can to try and alleviate the concerns of both the dean and the club captains. So work together with everyone to find a solution and settle.
Good answers all around. Okay, so I am now going to ask 3 questions to you all, because I could ask you loads, but I want to open it up to these guys, so I'm going to rattle through these. So, it's very often the case as president that college try to force you into doing something that you or the JCR or a JCR member you're speaking on behalf of does not feel is the best course of action. The place there where I have found this most prevalent is when you go in to advocate for students in meetings with the senior tutor, which often involves suggestions of rustication, suspension, proper term. Can you give an example of a time you have changed one course of action of events to a different course of action through the powers of your persuasion and possibly your persistence? Laura?
I have two because one is relevant and one is more in answer to the question, but one of them is relevant to the whole mental health dealing with stuff at school.
Go on, indulge us.
So, first one, with regards to school, I had quite a few, I guess unfortunately, had quite a few opportunities of having to act as a third-party member between teachers high up in the school and students who were struggling with health and work balance, etc. So with regards to that, it was actually the opposite, where the student needed to leave. The school didn't want to accept that the student needed to leave, in one example, and I basically was the key player in convincing the school that the student would not be safe and would not be comfortable in the school environment, despite the fact that they had nice friends, enjoyed everything, la la la. Actually, the only safe option was for that student to have a break from it all. So that's kind of the opposite. I appreciate that, but it was a time when I had to convince a higher authoritative body with regards to mental health that their decision or intention was not particularly the right one. And then I've forgotten the other one, so you're all very lucky.
First name, Alex.
So I don't have one specific to helping another student individually, but while I was president of my last sixth form, which Don alluded to in the interview there, I was part of the governing board, and one of the committees I was on was the Performance and Quality Committee, which ran most of the academic things, and they were looking, because of new budget constraints, because of government funding, that they needed to cut a subject, and two of the ones they were looking at were travel and tourism and an IT course that wasn't quite an A-level, but it was some sort of course that they had there. And I saw this on the agenda, and they were suggesting to get rid of the IT course because it costed marginally more, and to them it was just it cost £100 more a year. It's not much to them, but they thought that 100 quid could go somewhere. And I saw this on the agenda long before, and I did some research and listened to the students who did either subject, and found that travel and tourism tend to be a subject people picked as a fourth AS, and they weren't too worried about carrying on with that as a subject, whereas IT was quite important to people. It's one of their core subjects. So the students as a whole basically said that IT was more important to them if marginally more expensive, and while the student numbers were similar, many more people would go on and use that later on in life. So then I argued in the performance and quality meeting that we should get rid of travel and tourism instead, which obviously is unfortunate to have to do, but it was the best course of action. I managed to convince them.
Great.
So since I was in year 8 now, I've been part of a youth movement in Manchester, which is a national youth movement, but primarily in Manchester. And eventually I started out on a small leadership position in Manchester, worked my way up to leading in the north, eventually including Scotland, and eventually on a national level. And I ended up co-chairing the National Constitutional Convention. And one of the things in the constitution of this movement is that the summer camps that they run is only open for year 9s and year 10s. And every year at this constitutional convention, or every couple of years when it was discussed, we always talked about the possibility of opening up to more years. It's something that never got through, it was always thrown down. But I, alongside some other people, we put forward a motion to open up to year 7 and 8s. It's something that passed by a slim majority, granted, but this was something that has overturned dramatically from always being shot down, from always total opposition, to something that passed. And I'm proud that I was part of a team, I led a team that opened up these summer camps to year 7 and 8s to further these young children's education development.
Fab. Okay. Next question is one I poached from Liam earlier because it's actually really good. What is going to be your biggest weakness if you land this role, and how are you going to combat that? I'll give you a couple seconds because it's a tough one. If anyone's ready to answer, let me know. You look like you're ready, Greg.
Yeah, okay. I think my biggest weakness, especially coming to college, was My biggest weakness was stress, I think. Especially adapting. It was the first time that I'd lived away from home, especially coming out over summer. It was the first time that I'd got to live away from home in a new environment, in a new thing, especially with all the work. I mean, we all know the workload is ridiculous. At the very start of the year, I was stressed, and it was a problem. I would, you know, combine with restless nights and things like that, and it was starting to become a problem. Having said that, I think I've turned it around. I'm much more organised now, post notes everywhere, essays all in time. I've got a much better system in place now for coping with that, and it's no longer a problem. So it's still lingering in the background, but it's something that I've been working on a lot.
Alex.
I have to say something similar to Greg, actually. I was quite similar before I came here, and I think the shock of coming here and the pressures that you experience here has kind of forced me to be more organised, and yeah, I think I've benefited over the last year of being much better at being able to do that, managing my time better. But yeah, much better now, but like Greg said, I think still lingering. I just need to really focus on timetabling everything and knowing where everything is, and yeah, generally just being organised.
So firstly, I am a sucker for saying yes, which obviously you can. I have in the past signed up to absolutely everything possible just because everything sounds fun at the time. So I think one of my biggest weaknesses, but definitely something that I've changed quite a bit, is saying yes to too many things. And then my other one is hunger. If I'm hungry, I can't even nearly think. I can't speak to people. There's just a warning. It's just food. But yeah, that can be dealt with.
Okay, cool. Right, final question from me. I'm going to do quick fire. It's very important to know the Constitution well. I know it particularly well because I rewrote the whole thing over Easter. Please read it. You guys should also have read the new version and the old version. So I would like to go along the line and just keep going along, and I would like you to name a change from the old January version to the proposed April version.
I have read the January one because I was under the impression that was the one that we were using, and therefore that was the one that I should be knowledgeable about. So I can guess, but I can't. I'm just being honest. I can't know.
That's fine. This is the main one.
I think, is it that if there is a tie in an election, then the deciding vote is not the person whose role that is now the president, as opposed to just the returning officer.
Sneak, good detail.
The membership of the JCR Executive Committee has changed. So I think for the ALSU rep and Clubs and Socks included, they've now been switched out for equal ops.
I can tell you facts about the
Do some facts. It's important to know.
But that's not possible.
That's fine. Go for a fact. Go for the most detailed fact you can remember from the January. Or any fact.
About what, like, just a fact about the
Yes.
Constitution. That there's so mundane. You just don't know. Just that there is president, a vice president, etc., etc. There's a member of committees, and it tells you all of the roles.
Fab. Okay, cool. Right, that's it from me. We're going to take a break because I need a wee. So, and also the filming can stop now.